Now let me talk about, and so I think that's a powerful example of the animal standpoint and critique of human civilization.
Mislim da je to vrlo zanimljiv primjer životinjskog stajališta I kritike ljudskog društva.
I want to talk about now tactics. The animal standpoint can dramatically change the tactics that we use in this movement.
Sada bih govorio o taktici. Životinjsko stajalište može dramatično promijeniti taktike koje koristimo u ovom pokretu.
And some of you might find this very controversial.
Nekima će možda ovo biti vrlo kontroverzna tema.
I don't mean to offend you.
Ne želim vas uvrijediti.
But deal with it.
Ali nosite se s tim.
When we consider tactics, typically this movement is very pacifistic.
Kada razmišljamo o taktici, tipično dolazimo do zaključka da je ovaj pokret vrlo pacifističan.
And we always say things like violence is wrong, violence is never right. An eye for an eye makes the world blind. Violence only creates more violence. We say these clichés all the time.
Znači, stalno govorimo te kliše, nasilje nije dobro, oko za oko svi ćemo oslijepiti I slično.
But these clichés are not true.
Međutim, ti klišeji nisu istiniti.
Because when you study the history of modern social movements, you see that violence has always been a driving force of progressive change.
Ako promatrate povijest modernih društvenih pokreta, vidjet ćete da je nasilje uvijek bio element promjene I napretka.
Gandhi didn't win Indian independence all by himself. There was an armed uprising behind him that was never covered, but put strong pressure on the British to leave.
Gandhi nikad nije pobjedio britanski kolonijalizam sam. Iza njega je bio veliki otpor naoružani koji je izvršio znači pritisak, ali o kojem nitko ne govori.
Martin Luther King did not accomplish anything without being positioned as a moderate, thanks to the help of Malcolm X and the Black Panthers.
Martin Luther King ne bi ništa promijenio da ga nisu pokazali kao umjerenu osobu u odnosu na Malcolm X-a I Crne pantere.
And similarly, the U.S. did not pull out of Vietnam because of the hippie protesters in the streets of America.
Isto tako, SAD se nije povukao iz Vijetnama zbog hippie prosvjeda.
They were defeated militarily in the battlefield by the Viet Cong.
Doživjeli su vojni poraz na bojištu od Viet Conga.
So if we get over the hang-up that pacifism is the only way to work our tactics, and we get over the peer pressure and the dogma that violence is always wrong.
Ako prevladamo znači uvjerenje da je I tu dogmu da je nasilje uvijek loše.
And we ask the question, what should we do from the animal standpoint? We might get a different answer of what are effective and legitimate tactics.
I postavimo pitanje sa životinjskog stajališta, možda bismo dobili odgovor o učinkovitoj taktici.
Would the laboratory animal that is being cut apart and poisoned wants you to stand outside with a sign, write a petition on Facebook, or break down the damn door, smash through the cage, and bring it out of there to a safe place?
Bili laboratorijska životinja koju režu I koju truju stajala ispred laboratorija sa natpisima ili pokrenula peticiju na Facebooku ili bi pak provalila u laboratoriji I razbila kaveze I izvadila druge životinje van.
I want to read you a quote by a writer named Derek Jensen.
Pročitao bi vam citat pisca Dereka Jensena.
He asked the question in terms of what should we do when dams are being built and salmon fish are dying?
Pitao je što bismo trebali učiniti po pitanju gradnje brana zbog kojeg umiru lososi.
Because most people would write a letter to their congressperson and send a check to Greenpeace and consider their moral responsibility absolved.
Većina ljudi šalje pismo svojem predstavniku u kongresu I određenu donaciju Greenpeaceu I time misle da su obavili svoju dužnost.
Derek Jensen says this, and I'll read you just a short passage.
Jensen kaže ovo, pročitat ću vam kratak odlomak.
He said, what becomes the most moral thing to do?
Što je najmoralnija stvar?
Do we stand by and watch the last of the salmon die?
Hoćemo li stati i promatrati i posljednjeg lososa kako umire?
Do we write letters and file lawsuits
Hoćemo li pisati pisma i podizati parnice
that we know in our hearts will not make a damn difference?
koje duboko u sebi znamo da neće ništa postići?
Or do we take the dam down itself?
Ili ćemo srušiti samu branu?
Do we take the dam down ourselves?
Hoćemo li sami srušiti
In other
branu?
words, he's suggesting it is legitimate and necessary to blow up a dam to save the fish.
Drugim riječima on kaže da je opravdano srušiti branu kako bi se spasile ribe.
This is clearly illegal.
To je očito ilegalno.
For some people, it's unethical.
Za neke ljude to je neetično.
But for those of you who consider this an unethical action, whose side are you on?
Ali za vas koji mislite da je to neetično, na čijoj ste vi strani?
John Muir, the founder of the Sierra Club in the United States in the 19th century,
John Muir, osnivač Sierra kluba u 19. stoljeću,
said the following:
je rekao sljedeće.
if there were a war between the bears and the humans, I'd take the side of the bears.
Da postoji rat između medvjeda i ljudi, ja bi stao na stranu medvjeda.
Whose side would you take?
Čiju ćete vi stranu izabrati?
I know what side I'd fight on.
Ja znam za koga bi se ja borio.
You might say, well, do we need to fight at all?
A možda ćete reći, moramo li se uopće boriti?
I'd say yes.
Ja bih rekao da.
Because the corporate state system of exploitation is a gigantic system of slavery that is profitable and will never be relinquished peacefully.
Zato korporativni sustav iskorištavanja, sustav koji stvara profit i kojeg nikad nećemo legalno
It will
iskoristiti.
never come down from petitions or demonstrations or protests or letters to Congress people.
Nikada neće nestati zbog peticija ili prosvjeda ili pisama predstavnicima u Saboru i Kongresu.
This shit will stop when there is a civil war in this world like there was in the United States in the 19th century to stop human slavery.
To će prestati kada dođe do građanskog rata kakav je i postojao i u SAD-u za vrijeme, u svrhu sprječavanja ljudskog ropstva.
It took a war to stop that.
Za to je trebao rat.
It's going to take a war to stop this.
I za ovo će trebati rat.
And let me tell you something, if you think I'm exaggerating.
Ako mislite da pretjeravam,
If you think the battle hasn't already reached the level of armed struggle,
ako mislite da je borba već došla do toga da se bore sa oružjem,
what is happening in Africa, what is happening in Australia?
što se događa u Africi i Australiji?
Poachers are killing rhinoceri,
Krivolovci
And
ubijaju
elephants.
nosoroge i slonove.
These poachers are, in some case, mafia funded.
Te krivolovce ponekad financira mafija.
They are high-tech.
Imaju vrlo oboruženi su.
They descend onto private farms in helicopters
Dolaze na privatne farme s helikopterima
with wireless electronic technology
sa bežičnom tehnologijom
and automatic weapons.
i automatskim oružjem.
And they're there for one purpose and one purpose only:
I tamo su zbog samo jednog razloga.
to kill
Da ubiju.
and to take the horns of the elephant or the horns of the rhinoceros and leave the bloody stump behind.
I da uzmu kljove slona ili nosoroga i da napuste to područje.
And so some countries, some nations, some parts of Africa and Australia have said, yeah, basta, enough of this.
Neke države u Africi i Australija su rekli nećemo više to podnositi.
We cannot stop this peacefully.
To ne možemo spriječiti mirnim putem.
These are highly organized, highly trained gangs of murderers.
Ovo su vrlo organizirane bande ubojica.
And so they have organized armies and militias with weapons and legal permission to shoot on sight to protect elephants and rhinoceri.
Toga su te države organizirale policijske i vojne snage da ubiju te krivolovce na mjestu.
And I have collected a small volume of newspaper articles that describe this war in detail.
Ja sam skupio mnogo članaka koji opisuju detaljno taj rat.
And I could show you bodies of dead poachers.
Mogao bi vam pokazati tijela mrtvih krivolovaca.
I could show you bodies of dead militia that are hired to defend the animals.
Znači, mogu vam pokazati tijela mrtvih vojnika i policajaca koji su najmjeni da brane životinje.
But this is an armed struggle.
No, to je oružana borba.
And so what would the animals want us to do?
Što bi životinje htjela da učinimo?
From the animal standpoint, is pacifism the correct strategy?
Sa životinjskog stajališta je li pacifizam ispravna strategija?
To stop the Holocaust, do we write petitions and write letters, Dear Adolf, as Gandhi suggested?
A da bismo zaustavili holokaust, bismo li trebali pisati Hitleru, dragi Adolfe, kao što je to Gandhi predlagao?
Sometimes there are forces on this planet that are so strong, so evil, so implacable, there's only one way to resist.
Ponekad na ovom planetu postoje toliko snažne sile da postoji samo jedan način otpora.
And it's not violence, by the way.
I to nije nasilje usput.
It's self-defense.
To je samo obrana.